Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Chaturvedi. Thank you very much to MBA Universe, and thank you very much, MDI as well, for inviting me here. I'll very quickly talk a little bit about some of the challenges. Generally speaking, the NEP, at least to me, comes across as a breath of fresh air from many different perspectives. The challenge is whether we as PGDM institutions are ready for being able to consume that breath of fresh air is something that we'll have to look at, but maybe I'll look at that a little later. Some challenges which I'm sure some of you are already aware of, how do you go up to 6% of GDP? How do you kind of ensure that the center and the state is able to spend that kind of money? The National Testing Agency, once again, you can have a debate on whether that's the approach that we should be looking at going forward, looking at trends, looking at where the world's moving to. Language-related complications, but something which is a little bit more closer home right now is the teacher or the faculty-related quality as well as the administrative quality. I think those are things which will finally help us understand the level of implementation, and our satisfactions related to that level of implementation is very important. The other thing that I quickly wanted to highlight is this whole idea of gross enrollment ratio, or whether in some quarters you call it the eligibility enrollment ratio. I think we'll have to look at and analyze the experiments that the UK went through, possibly in the 60s till about the 1990s, and then they converted a lot of the polytechnics to universities or clusters of universities as a whole. Yes, the whole objective was absolutely fine. It was important to get a lot more people into the classroom, getting their degrees. But at the same time, you'll also have to understand whether that's also leading to certain levels of debt. Because if you look at the experience of a lot of universities abroad, whether at the undergrad level or whether at the postgrad level, a lot of students there were left with a debt day one of when they started life. So those are things that we may need to look at. The other thing that we also have to understand is, by and large, all of us are thinking in terms of the end point or the terminal point being degrees. And that itself is a question that I would like you to reflect on, whether degrees are the end point or the main reason for consumption and coming to the universities, coming to educational institutions, coming to PGDM institutions. I think that's something that we might have to reflect on, because it doesn't take very long for a lot of big companies and then followed by smaller companies to change their measure of who should they be recruiting. That itself will turn the model on its head completely. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit from a thought perspective is this whole idea of who will be regulated. I think it's very important for us to understand, because right now, at least from a personal perspective, we are watching a nice thing happening, a lot of transition taking place, blended learning, a lot of organizations coming into the picture. But a lot of us as institutions are not necessarily able to join the party, are not able to necessarily be a part of the whole transition. And that's something that we need to be able to do much quicker. Yes, we have timelines of 10 years, 15 years, but I think a lot of this requires very quick, and this is something that you all talk about, is the graded autonomy aspect. We'll have to be much quicker in this so as to be able to benefit from something that is happening here and now, and not necessarily 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So that's my two-penny bit as far as the challenges are concerned. The opportunities, like I said, it's amazing in terms of opportunities if you're ready for it. If you reflect on what we are doing as institutions, in this case we're talking about PGDM institutions, business schools, a lot of the extra programs that we've created are on the back of that core program that we've had. So we're essentially monetizing our brand equity, we're capitalizing on the equity that we have. And are those people part of those 5,000 or 3,000 that we're talking about into the future is something that we'll have to understand. A lot of the change that is being asked for from us is actually change which has to go right into the core of our existence. Are we looking at undergrad education? Are we looking at a total change in curriculum? This whole idea that everybody talks about is, yes, you're reaching a certain level of scale. EdTech companies are allowing that to happen. A lot more people are getting certified in terms of getting a certain understanding or knowledge or learning. That's perfectly fine. But the main point here is that whether we are able to create that level of consciousness, environment, whether we are able to create that deconstruction of the curriculum within the campus. I think partly it's mindset, Partly it is the fact that we've obviously done rather well. We've been able to do fantastic stuff with, let's say, 1,000 students, possibly 1,500 students, and then we are monetizing because that also adds to a management development program income. But I think what the NEP is asking us from us is getting to the core of a lot of things deconstructed. Let's say, for example, personalization. On the one side we talk about scale, on the other side we talk about personalization. Yes, the assumption is that we as possibly smaller schools, we as PGDM schools, which kind of have an intake of, let's say, 200 to about 400, 500, 600, should ideally be providing a certain level of personalization. But do we? I think that's where we'll have to look at a lot of changes. Fundamentally, these are the points that I wanted to bring up. Obviously, there's paucity of time. The interdisciplinary, I'll take 1 or 2 more minutes. The interdisciplinary aspect needs to be looked at in much broader detail. That's my fundamental opinion. Yes, we can infuse certain levels of courses into the core program, but I think here we're talking about looking at what the core is, and I think that this is actually an opportunity for us going forward to understand what the core is. As far as your question on research is concerned, there's enough avenue for us out there to get
Vishalji, we will come to it.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.